So this is the room that we use as a music room, and by chance and design, the acoustics in here are absolutely superb. When we refurbed the pub, when we took it in '85, we left the floor, which I thought was lino. It's actually called coal tar or something. But we left it bald, and instead of padding the seating, we left the seating bald. So the acoustics are wonderful for the music. And curious enough, talking about the floor, there's a fellow called Albert Hattersley, who is still with us at a really good age. And we were sitting here one day and talking about the acoustics, and I said, oh, we kept this lino, whatever he said, it's coal tar, whatever he called it. And I said, how do you know that? He said, I laid it in 1953. He said, you couldn't do it now because it's laid as a molten floor, and the health and safety and stuff, they wouldn't allow you to do it. So it's fabulous, and it's just lasting as well, but the acoustics are great. And so if your picture's on the wall in here, apart from one or two sports things, it means you've played in here. You've sung in here, or you played instruments in here, and all the rest of it. And lots of people in here will be known to people in Sheffield. A few of them will be known to people around the world, because Dwayne Eddy, whose two best pals were Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash, has played in here several times. Again, the Hawley connection. He'd come over to make make an album with Richard Wright, wanted to make it. Richard Hawley himself, of course, is an old dear friend of ours. Jules Holland's up there somewhere, but most of the musicians in here are really, really wonderful musicians. They, whether singers or players or whatever, and just nice people. Two of the first musicians who played in here were these guys. This fella is called Tony Irvin, and a wonderful singer and guitarist, and he used to run the sessions, and if you didn't get here within 15 minutes of the session starting, you wouldn't get in. They were just absolutely around. Really, really superb performer. Sadly passed away some years ago. This is Tom Smith, who is still going very strong. He lives up in Ayr now, and it's his birthday on the 10th of September, which is the day we came in here. So every 10th of September, we're always in touch with Tom. His birthday and our anniversary. Lovely fella. And back in the day, 30 years ago, if we occasionally went away or something, Tom would run the pub for us, and more than competently. He's produced lots of records, and he still goes over to America and Canada playing his music. Wonderful musician. This drawing here is a guy called Mick Rafferty, and Mick was a singer. I say was because sadly we've lost him. Singer and guitarist, and very, very good indeed, and a lovely fella with a very interesting background. He was a pipe sergeant in the Black Watch, and I said to him, how did you end up at all in the Black Watch? As a Catholic, you were brought up a Roman Catholic, and the Black Watch was famously a sort of Protestant regiment. And he said, my father had a very peculiar sense of humour, and when I was 15 he marched me down to the barracks in Mary Hill and signed me up, and I couldn't fight. He says, but within 2 weeks I could fight. And he'd not seen a lot of his family later on in life. He seemed to, became, as so many people do, a little bit estranged. And sadly he passed away. We had his funeral due here, and his family came down from Scotland, and they were astonished by the crowds of people that were crammed in this head. We didn't know he had many friends at all anyway. I said, so he's enormously popular. He said, we got this image of him sort of, a quiet little soul, like wasting away on his own. And I said, you're kidding me? I said, he used to fill the pub when he came down singing. So that's Rafferty, God rest him, a lovely, lovely man.
One of a few people I know who had 2 wakes simultaneously.
Yeah.
There was one at the dog and him.
Yeah, that's right. There were so many people who loved him. They filled 2 pubs, yeah. The picture next to it is a lovely picture. Again, it just sort of captures the spirit of the place, doesn't it? And the guy on the left is an Ullian piper. He actually makes, or used to, I think he's stopped doing it now, making Ullian pipes. And he actually went over to the west of Ireland to learn how to do it, and then he started making them. And he made them for the McPeaks and people at the top Ullian pipers in the world. And he also made baronnes, and I've got one of his original baronnes that he made as well. The guy next to him, who looks about 12 there, is actually old enough to drink in that photo. And that's Patrick Walker, who is an extraordinarily gifted musician, singer, fiddler, guitarist, one of the most competent all-round musicians I've ever come across. And we've had the privilege of him playing in here quite a lot. He now lives in Croatia with his wife over there in Zagreb or somewhere. But anyway, as a much younger Patrick Walker in that photo, one of the great musicians who played in here down the years. Yeah, the first time I met Patrick Walker, I knew his father and mother, Graham and June, from the Dog and Partridge, and I used to have a drink with them. And there was a wonderful session on Saturdays, and one day I went in, and there was this little boy who looked about 6, who was actually about 14, and it was Patrick. And one of the bands that were playing in there at the time, they'd just come back from touring Europe. They were very, very good traditional Irish folk band. And they'd just come back, I think, from Hamburg. And Graham, Pat's dad, went over to the fiddler who he knew and said, "Could my lad have a go on your fiddle?" And this fella said, "Of course he can, Graham, of course he can." And he said, "Come here, son." He said, "But look, be careful, don't drop it, it's not a toy." And he said, "Oh, thank you very much." And he took it off him anyway. When that song ended, whatever, he started. And he was 10 times better than the professional fiddler. And rapture, a standing ovation. Cry, who's it? And everybody thought, who on earth is this kid, you know? And the fiddler snatched it back off him, put it in the case, locked it, threw it under the seat, and he sat there, you know, sort of. It was really quite an amusing moment, but that's the first clue that I had, just how gifted this kid was. And he was actually about 13 or 14 at the time, but he was he's just continued to be brilliant for the rest of his life, of course.